A lease of 800,000 acres brought George Edward Lemon to the Northern Plains right after the turn of the century. He's credited with helping the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad establish their line, and with organizing the Western South Dakota Stock Growers Association. Welcome to Dakota Life, and greetings from Lemon, South Dakota. We're here in the very northern part of Perkins County. As a matter of fact, if you go a block that way, you'd be in North Dakota. Lemon was founded in 1906 and has been thriving ever since. It's still cattle country, but art and creativity are commodities too. We'll visit a local jewelry manufacturer later in the show, but our first stop is to the Kokomo Gallery on Main Street, where renowned sculptor John Lopez works in scrap metal and found objects. He created a statue to G.E. Lemon, and just outside of the gallery is a recent work that represents a collaboration from artists around the world.
I was struggling with some decisions in my life. I had just put my dad in the nursing home. And so when I started working on this piece, I didn't really know the direction that it was going to go. So all these different feelings I was feeling about putting my dad in the nursing home and stuff, I don't know if I tried hard to put it in the sculpture, but I think it kind of came out in the way the trunk turned out with all the different trials and tribulations sometimes that we go through. And plants go through a drought, and then in the spring they end up blossoming despite all the struggles that they've gone through. And so I just kind of let it take me on this journey, and came up with this idea to invite other artists. During the kind of the COVID thing, there was everyone on social media was kind of struggling with their creativity, and you could kind of tell by some of the posts. So I put a post on Instagram. I think I have enough blossoms, so come and see the tree when it's done. Thanks. Because I wanted to do a sculpture that included other artists, but I didn't want to do something that would cause a lot of drama. So then this idea hit me. Well, a blossom is fairly simple, and just about anybody could come up with their version of a blossom, and it would just kind of be a community thing.
I made a blossom before this, but I didn't know how to weld, so I used super glue because I didn't know how, I don't know how to weld.
Trig and his sisters, they each made a blossom for the tree, and they go to school here in Lemon, so they're local kids. I went to high school with their dad, and so they glued together these fishing lures and different things with hot glue. And so then when I welded it to the tree, it just melted and all the petals fell off, so I felt terrible.
So John invited me out to his house so that I could make another one, and this was the final image of it.
So he came out a couple days ago and made a blossom, and then got to use a welder and a plasma cutter, so it was a new experience for him. And now when he comes to look at the tree, he'll be able to point his blossom out to different people.
He had like a small thing. It's like kind of like a hitch thing, but way smaller, and then we pounded it with a hammer to make that go in a bit. And then we welded, and then we grabbed 5 fishing spoons from what I brought, and then we welded them to the carriage bolt, and then we welded these 2 to a carriage bolt, and then we welded the carriage bolts together to make this.
I've known John since he was a child, but never really associated with him until one day he called me and he said, "I'm looking for a junk pile with some specific items in it." And I said, "My neighbor has got the perfect stuff. It's from that era." And then after that, he calls once in a while and we go junking. You know where there's a junk pile, or he'll say, "I found one." And I have a kind of an idea what he's looking for, so we can go through rather quickly.
I often think, if I was in Italy, I'd be carving sculptures out of marble. But we don't have a lot of wood here. We don't have a lot of granite marble, but we do have a lot of scrap metal. So that's the medium that I choose to work in, and there's plenty plenty of material to choose from in this area.
John asked if I wanted to make a flower, and I'm a gun nut, so I took a couple of cartridges, a 50 Browning machine gun brass and a 30-06, and I split them lengthways, bent them into petals, fixed them together. Brass kind of tarnishes with age. Sometimes it gets green, and I thought it would give a constant life to the tree. When it gets to that point, there will always be a strangest golden green flower.
I think we got a pretty good group of people here in Lemmon that have really appreciated what I'm trying to do here. So that helps me want to keep doing more and keep coming up with fresh ideas.
As John Lopez apprenticed at the Dale Lamphere Studios over 25 years ago, it's not uncommon to find other metal artists from around the world making a pilgrimage here to Lemmon to share their work and to learn from Lopez. And speaking of artistic acclaim, poet and essayist Kathleen Norris spent many summers here in Lemmon visiting her grandparents. She later inherited their land, and she moved her family from the East Coast here to Lemmon and lived for many years on the farm. It was a life that inspired many of her books and poems. Almost 250 miles straight south from here, there's another artist at work on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Lance Christensen is an artist that works on a background of greens and fairways.
Well, it was probably 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and we had talked about moving away from the reservation and, go to a different school, be part of a team that has a chance to win a championship, and then, which he's never had, and then just be around the golf course every day because he loves it so much. And so I had talked with them about that, and he overheard that conversation between me and his mom, and he expressed like, no, don't move me away, don't move me away. I could do it from here, and when I do it, it'll mean more.
Lance Christensen Jr. is good at golf, really good, but his legacy with the sport is just getting started. Most of his life has held a passion for the game, but his dedication to being great is something that puts this teenager from the Pine Ridge Reservation at a whole different level.
When I was younger, Tiger Woods was just growing up. He just kind of brought up the game for minorities, and I think there's a lot of people that can say that they golf because of Tiger Woods. It was amazing. You never seen somebody hit a golf ball like that.
Lance Christensen Jr. lives just outside of Kyle, South Dakota, south of the Badlands and in the middle of the Pine Ridge Reservation. It's not exactly an area where a lot of people golf, and that's because there's no golf course. For Lance, the closest golf course to him is south of him, just across the Nebraska border in a town called Gordon.
It's 45 miles away. The first 20-25 miles-ish is dirt road. And a lot of people probably see it as negative, and they see it as, why in the heck would you want to do that? Why'd you choose golf, And then a lot of people say, I'm athletic, you could be a track runner, you could play basketball, I've heard that, I don't know, I love it so much, and for me it's not negative. I don't see it as that. I ask myself sometimes why in the heck I do it too, but at the end of the day, when I'm over that golf ball swinging, nothing else matters.
It's no coincidence that Lance loves golf. As cliche as it sounds, the drive can be found in his family tree.
Senior always took Lance with him when they'd go to the golf course. And so he's been a part of it. I don't know if he knew there was something else, because he just always was golfing from a very young age. And we got him the plastic clubs, and then, he would take them and go, and then he'd go to tournaments with his dad, so he was always a part of it. The men in my mom's side of the family, the Mendoza family, they're golfers. And so, of course, that was something to relate to as well.
My dad was a very good golfer in high school. He got second place at a state tournament, and on my mom's side of the family, my great-grandpa Mendoza, Hilario Mendoza, he was a Mexican-American, and he was an amazing golfer. And that day and age, back in the 50s and 60s or whatever the time was, he couldn't go into the clubhouse like a normal golfer, and definitely kind of drives me, because my dad never got the fair chance either, and he never got the fair chance to go all the way because They both had the talent. I just kind of carry that with me all the time. There's many other golfers in my family, but those are kind of the two that stick out and part of the reason I play.
Just because he doesn't live near a golf course, that hasn't stopped Lance from practicing on a regular basis. Right next to his house, where most people would have a yard, Lance has a homemade driving range.
There's the draw. Might be able to see I got a couple tires out here and practice my pitch shots and stuff like that. Have them out at each differences, so 130 yards, 150, 180, 200 yards, just hitting plenty of golf balls. Look at that tree. Try to practice my cuts, so you kind of look at it like a tic-tac-toe thing, and you can see gaps in there. So I'd say I'm gonna cut it, and I'm gonna knock off one of the tips of those branches, and it's gonna break. You get pretty bored out here, so you figure out things to do. Cutting it.
It was important for Lance not to move off the reservation when he got serious about golf. He wanted to prove to everybody that he could excel on the Pine Ridge Reservation. In the fall of 2019, the entire state discovered just who Lance Christensen Jr. was, as he won an individual state golf title. Today, Lance continues to practice on a regular basis. He still makes the 90-minute round-trip drive to Nebraska to play, and he's also helping to train the next generation of golfers on the reservation.
Go a little back a little farther, then break them down, you know what I mean? Stay a little solid. I remember when I was younger, looking up to those kids in high school, it was just like they were Superman, you know, they could do anything. Yeah, I just remember that feeling once I started getting that recognition from them, and I just always try to be the best role model I can for them.
Christensen has logged a lot of miles to practice his craft on his home course. Residents here in Lemmon also have miles to cover. We're in the extreme northern edge of Perkins County, the second largest county in the state by area, covering about 2,900 square miles. And that means there's enough room for each person living in Perkins County to have a square mile all to themselves. The wide open country around Lemmon has a beauty unto its own. From the Grand River National Grasslands to the Shade Hill Reservoir, man-made from a dam on the Grand River. The lake now covers the site where the legendary Hugh Glass was mauled by a grizzly bear in 1823. There are many more neighbors nearby the Prunty farm at Hartford. That's where Adam Prunty manages a herd of cattle and takes care of his row crops. But there's time at the end of the day to explore his creativity.
Adam Prunty checks the corn on the family farm near Hartford, the same land his great-great-grandfather worked 4 generations ago.
So this time of year, when it's getting close to harvest, we'll look and see where the milk layer is on the corn, see if it's dry enough to combine, and see if it's fully mature.
Like most farmers, Prunty believes working from sunup to sunset is just something you do. From keeping the combine in working order to feeding the family's 300 head of cattle, there's always work to do.
When you grow up on a farm, a lot of people say it's in your blood, and I feel the same way. I'm the 5th generation on this farm, and it's an honor to be a part of it and continue on that legacy.
Now he and his wife are raising their 2 boys next door to the family farm. Prunty has learned to combine his love of the land with a talent he's had since childhood.
First passion is farming. I've obviously been doing that since I was very little, but at the same time I've also really enjoyed art and illustration since I was little. Ever since I was little, I've just always had a pencil in my hand. I loved to draw cartoons when I was little.
We all know farming is a demanding profession. So how does Prunty find the time for his art?
A lot of late nights. I'm a night owl, so that helps. When I get done with farming, sometimes I'll come and work on the computer till late at night. And then I've worked with agencies regionally, nationally, anywhere from rebranding the Arizona National Livestock Show, which is like the 2nd biggest show in the country, to the vet clinic in Montrose.
Companies hire Prunty for all sorts of projects, from logo design to character generation, like Adrenaline Sports Marketing's Nate Burdine.
Adam is as talented as he is humble and down to earth, and one of my favorite things about Adam is that he could really go anywhere in the world with his artwork. He's that talented and creative.
So here's one of the projects that I've done with an agency down in Omaha. They needed some children's characters for a local eye clinic. So we created about 6 different characters and an interactive map for them to go around town and stop at different locations and get little coupons, and then they'd get a discount on their next set of eyeglasses.
You don't need glasses to see his work at the Washington Pavilion in Sioux Falls. It will walk right up to you. Prunty is the artist behind Radley Rex, the kid-friendly mascot designed to help promote events. However, it was a creative holiday brainstorm with his father a few years ago that gained Prunty Farms worldwide notoriety. After 10 inches of snowfall, Prunty and his father Dan spelled out Merry Christmas using one of their tractors. Adam recorded the message with his drone and produced a video.
And from there it went viral. It's had almost 3 million views worldwide since then. And yeah, that was a pretty fun experience.
Let's face it, time in a tractor or combine can get monotonous, but not for Prunty. He uses that time to come up with his ideas.
So this cow I actually originally sketched while I was loading corn into the semi. I was just wasting time, and I have a notebook in the semi. So while I was waiting to load the semi, I sketched this little cow out, and then I took it home and used pencil and ink to make it a little bit crisper. And then eventually I scanned it into the computer.
When it comes to his artwork, Adam says smaller projects are often just as satisfying as the larger ones.
I do get a lot of enjoyment out of working with small local companies. I don't do it really for the money. I do it because I enjoy it. And if I can help them out and elevate their brand or get them some better advertising impact, I really enjoy that. Yep.
During certain times of the year, like harvest season, Adam limits the number of art assignments he'll take on so he can focus on the farm. And of course, when the farming slows down, he'll shift more of his effort to his artwork. When some of us are struggling to find one career we love, he's found 2. And on this day, it's time for the artist to say goodnight, because the farmer has an early morning.
The Prunty land yields row crops, livestock, and it fuels his creativity. Here in the Lemon area, it's dinosaur country. This summer, just south of here, a professor and his students from Westminster College in Missouri unearthed a 3,000-pound Triceratops skull. Fossilized wood fascinated Ole S. Quammen. He arrived in Lemon by passenger train in 1907, and he ran the local lumber yard. His hobby was examining petrified wood found around the county. During the early years of the Depression, he helped employ many local folks, building the Petrified Sculpture Garden, and nearly 100 years later, the city of Lemon maintains the park. The Bainbridge family, they know a thing or two about century-long traditions. 2020 is the 101st harvest for this Ethan, South Dakota family.
Born and raised on the farm his sons, Matt and Neil, now run, third-generation farmer Lewis Bainbridge says he has a lot to be grateful for this harvest.
Oh, I'm incredibly grateful for a wonderful family, a wonderful spot to live and call home, and obviously we're having a really, really good harvest.
Although he continues to help wherever his sons need him, 2020 is the first growing season he and his wife Charlene have entrusted all their farm acres and management decisions to their sons.
Absolutely trust them. They've been doing the majority of the decision making now for a couple of years, and this is the first year that I'm really not involved. I don't have an acre of corn, I don't have an acre of soybeans. They have it all, and I help out where I'm kind of needed and where I can do some things to give them a little bit of a boost.
No-till farming is chief among the farming practices Lewis introduced to the family's field in the early 90s
We're not blessed with abundance of topsoil, I guess, so that's the big thing for us, is to try and eliminate the wind erosion, the soil erosion from rain, everything, and just preserve what we have. I mean, there's spots that there's not a whole lot left anymore, so that's the big thing for us, and moisture conservation too. As you have kids and your kids start getting older, I think it kind of plays into more. I mean, what are we going to leave our kids? I mean, I have no idea if they're going to want to come back and farm. Hopefully they do. But, I mean, we're going to have to conserve the ground that we have for them to come back.
Neil and his brother Matt say that they always knew they would return to farm full-time after college.
I think it must be in our blood or something. You know, this is just something that I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid. And, you know, helping my dad or grandpa on the farm, you just... I don't know, it just really grabs hold of you and you really just want to be a part of it.
Today, it's his toddler son Zach, or one of Neil's 3 daughters, who ride along in the combine with him. Matt says he enjoys each season on the farm, but harvest is special.
I always love the harvest time because it's kind of the payoff at the end of the year, just to kind of see everything come together and to see kind of your reward at the end of the year and how everything worked out.
Decisions made 6 or more months ago can impact how many bushels of corn they will yield at harvest.
Each variety will kind of react a little bit differently on different soil and in a different growing season too. So we get to kind of see how that plays out, and then the fertility plans are made at the same time. So, you know, really we spend a lot of the winter time making plans, and this is kind of the payoff at the end of the year, and see how everything worked out and what we did good and what we messed up on, I guess.
Matt says so far corn yields are better than average.
From the tradition of the fall harvest, the summer tradition here in Lemon is the Boscalman Rodeo and Celebration. It's a reminder of the ranch heritage in this part of the state and has been a way for cattlemen and non-cattlemen to let off a little steam each July. There's also a century-plus heritage of making jewelry here in Lemon. Robert and Fran Wheeler bought a local jewelry business right after World War II and created Wheeler Manufacturing. Now, a little piece of Lemon, South Dakota is on display stands all over the country, Canada, and some overseas locations too.
Well, the Wheeler story would be my parents bought this business April Fool's Day 1946. And we still don't know who the joke's on, whether we paid too much or not enough, or what the deal was.
Brad Wheeler may jest, but 74 years in business is no joke. It was 1946 when his dad Robert and mother Fran moved to Lemon and bought a small rock shop that cut Montana agate for a line of jewelry.
She was the bookkeeper and he did the management of the business, and it just gradually grew. When I got back into the business, we were the smallest of 3 major jewelry suppliers to the tourist trade in the United States. And then along came gas prices over $1 a gallon for the first time, interest rates over 20%, silver, and it was $45 an ounce. And it wasn't but about 3 years later, those other 2 competitors that were bigger than us were out of business.
Wheeler Manufacturing has evolved through nearly 8 decades in the wholesale jewelry business. Silver and gold have replaced rock jewelry, and through innovation and customer service, their products can now be found in tourist gift shops throughout North America.
About 50% of it's made in the USA yet, which is a really hard thing to do in the jewelry market, because so much of it is imported.
More than 60 sales reps for Wheeler Manufacturing service accounts throughout the U.S. and Canada, and Made in the USA is a tremendous marketing point. For the 100 employees in Lemon, Made in Lemon benefits their family's quality of life.
From day one, my parents were sold on the community and involved in the community. I mean, we're just really thankful for the quality of people that we have that work for us. They're hardworking people, and they pay attention to what's going on. I think on the reverse side, there's a number of people, and I think of farm wives that work here that come here, and they not only come here for a salary, but we're also able to provide them with health insurance and with a profit sharing or a 401k plan. So it's kind of a reciprocal relationship.
There's now a third generation of wheelers in the business, and it's the same for the production and sales teams.
There was second generations in salespeople here in the factory. There's even third generations of people.
Brad Wheeler says their products help make memories for travelers. And as his family continues to diversify the business, the company's success and employee ownership program means the factory will be a vigorous employer for generations to come. For Wheeler Manufacturing, innovation and a commitment to community and customer service is a winning combination. And maybe that's the theme of our visit. Opportunity is everywhere if you make the most of what you have. Although ranch life has evolved from the open range to fenced pastures, the high school mascots are still the cowboys and cowgirls. And you have to admire those students who've named the Lemmon School newspaper the Squeezer. Lemmon is a border town. It's an hour closer to the North Dakota capital than to Pierre. Robert Frost said that good fences make good neighbors. Perhaps that's why the Dakota's border is the only one in the Union that was physically marked. In fact, in 1890, surveyors installed 720 monuments along the state line. How many of those pillars remain is uncertain. But it is certain that there's nothing sour about Lemmon, and that we'll be back with another edition of Dakota Life. In the meantime, there are many more stories for you at sdpb.org/Dakota Life.